Hello everyone, it's me Shanti and you're watching Science Nowadays. This online educational platform is dedicated to bring clarity in basic concepts of environmental science. In this video, let's learn about ecotones, edge effect, edge species, and ecoclines. Imagine that you're traveling down a big mountain. From its top to down the valley, you can sense a gradual increase in temperature. The environmental conditions, including the plant and animal communities adapted to these conditions, change gradually along the temperature gradient. But in nature, you can also see areas or points of sudden change in environmental conditions and living communities. This happens when two distinctly different ecosystems meet. Have a look at this beautiful sea beach. It's a transition zone between land and sea, which are two distinctly different ecosystems. Here, the transition is steep, not gradual. Such areas of steep transition between two or more different ecological communities or ecosystems or ecological regions are called ecotones. Estuaries, where a freshwater river meets the sea or ocean, are also examples for ecotones. They are the transition zones between freshwater and saltwater. The origin of the word ecotone is from the Greek words oikos, which means home, and tonos, which means tension. Yes, ecotones are regarded as tension zones as they are highly active and the conditions are usually unstable. Ecotones are usually narrow. They may be natural or man-made. Now let's discuss about the ecological importance of ecotones. Actually, ecotones do not simply represent a boundary between two or more ecosystems, but there exists an active interaction between these ecosystems. As a result, ecotones possess properties that do not exist in either of the adjacent ecosystems. For example, if you take the case of the sea beach, alternate flooding and drying tidal action is its unique feature. Here, in addition to organisms that are characteristic of each of the overlapping communities, you can also find numerous kinds of living forms that are not found either on land or in the open sea. For example, some species of crabs are seen only on sea beaches. Ecotones are of great importance because many species require two or more adjacent communities that differ greatly in structure for mating, nesting, or for food. Let me give you some examples of such species. Sea turtles are unique organisms that come to beaches just to lay eggs and then get back to the sea. Also, there are some species of fishes that come from sea to estuaries for spawning. Another example is American robin, seen in the forest grassland ecotones. These birds require trees for nesting and open grassy areas for feeding. Thus, ecotones generally show higher species richness, diversity, and abundances when compared to its bordering ecosystems. Ecologists even consider ecotone habitats as a source of evolutionary novelty, generating increased biodiversity. The tendency for increased variety and density of species at community junctions is known as edge effect. By the way, edge refers to the narrow zone of habitat transition. Edge effect occurs as a result of one type of habitat conjoining with another. For example, I have shown the edges in this case. But in a real situation where a forest and grassland meets, these edges will not be this sharp. The species that use edges for purposes of reproduction or survival are frequently termed as edge species. But you should also understand that sometimes ecotones with a sharp edge, for example, a clear-cut and an uncut forest, may be a poor habitat and as a result have poor species richness and diversity. In this case, species diversity and abundance will be obviously greater inside the forest and not in the ecotone area. This ecotone is also an example for a man-made ecotone. Ecotones may also serve as sensitive indicators of climate change, because they harbor species that are often near the limit of their physical and competitive tolerances. I hope that you got a nice idea of ecotone, edge effect, and edge species. But do you know what an ecocline is? Once again, imagine that you are traveling down a big mountain. Now let's have a look at this figure. It shows how the gradient in temperature creates a series of different vegetation communities from alpine zone to rainforest down the mountain. This is an example for ecocline. So, ecoclines are gradient zones containing relatively heterogeneous communities which are environmentally more stable than those of ecotones. In other words, an ecocline represents a boundary of more gradual, progressive change in terms of both spatial and ecological between two ecosystems. This picture shows the transition area between alpine ecosystem and rainforest ecosystem. On the other hand, as we discussed before, ecotones are generally narrow and show a sharp transition between two ecosystems. So even though both ecotones and ecoclines are transition zones between two ecosystems, I hope that you got a clear picture about the differences between these two terms. And that's all for this video. If you find this video helpful, let us know in the comment box below, and don't forget to subscribe for more videos on topics related to environmental science.